Okay, so this is Michael Bunker. This is going to be the Michael Bunker radio podcast thingy, name to be inserted later once it's created. All right, so here we go. This is my first kind of test podcast, and I don't know how it's going to work. The technology is just killing me. I used to have a radio show that was pretty good. A lot of people listened to it, but everything's gotten more difficult. It seems you'd think things would be getting easier, but they're getting more difficult. So I've spent a lot of time over the last couple of weeks trying to figure out how to do this, and it should just be easy. If I'm on my Samsung tablet or on my phone, you just hit a button. I want to record. On the laptop, they got to make it difficult, and so what I want to do is I want to go into YouTube, and I just want to make a recording without video. I just insert a picture there, and then that's the podcast. That's all there is to it. But you can't do that. You gotta like download encoders. You gotta set a bunch of stuff up. It's a big headache, and then they won't let you just do audio on there. So you gotta go get another audio recording software, and you gotta figure that crap out, and then they want you to put it into your movie making software, and then add your picture, and it's just a big mess. It's not easy, and it should be. So that's where I am. I'm a little irritated, a little crotchety right now, and so I asked a bunch of people on Facebook to kind of give me suggestions for topics, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of what this is going to be. And I like doing the Facebook Live. That's what I was doing. It works pretty well, but the thing is, it's like uh, first of all, a lot of people watch it. I look back at the end of the day, and there's 150, 200, 250, 300 people watch the video. But while it's actually on live, I can't get anybody to ask a question. There's like three people that ask one question during the whole, 30 or 40 minute deal. So, and then I get all these questions later on from people watching the video. And so, and then there's also not a way to like record or to notate what topics were covered in that video so that people would actually want to tune in. And I can tell you, this thing, it's like my radio show. It's going to be popular because I talk about a lot of cool stuff from a different point of view. I disagree with you on everything. So, and I got this chair that squeaks. It's probably going to be irritating to a lot of people. But so I asked a bunch of people on Facebook to give me topics, and of course, I got all these funny friends. They're all hilarious comedians, and so I got to sift through the 23 smart aleck questions topics to get to the serious stuff, and that's fine. I love my friends. I'm glad they're all just hilarious. I told you I'm a little perturbed. The technology's got me upset. What they ought to have on YouTube is they ought to have a button. You have the button for the complicated crap that everybody wants to do so that they can, the technical people can go in and make it unique and do all the things they want to do. But what happens is they need a button for dumb people. You click that button and it just says, what do you want to do? And there's a list of what it'll do. I want to record a podcast, but I don't want to have video. I want to just put a static picture on there. Bam, easy. I can do it on YouTube on my tablet. So why I can't do that on YouTube on my computer, I don't know. And the thing is that I got this very expensive microphone I want to use. I don't want to use the tablet microphone. So, if you're not, technically adept, they make it difficult. And so when I've done this in the past, I had a very popular radio podcast that was on Blog Talk Radio. I had a friend that did all this stuff. All I had to do was like call in at a certain time. Pardon me. And so that somebody was doing it for me, and I've talked to Rob McClellan about doing this, helping me out with Third Scribe, and we're going to try to do something. So this podcast is probably going to change a lot over the time, and we'll see how it kind of evolves. But so this is the first one. I asked some questions. I got the smart ass answers. UFOs, alien baristas, snakes on the plane. Everybody's hilarious. Zombie apocalypse versus nuclear war. Yeah, maybe they're serious. Maybe they want to hear me talk about that. Here's one. How long before all cars are actually flying around, like in the movie Back to the Future? Well, I don't think that we're likely to see that anytime soon. And I think that when it does happen, you can't let. And I would have said this in 1910 when we were rolling out the automobile. You can't let the average people uh, drive a flying car. Unless they come up with some technology that makes it where you get a fender bender and you don't everybody doesn't die plus people on the ground. So they're going to have to do something creative, or it's going to be the direction they're going with automobiles right now. And I talked about this in my book Pennsylvania, where there's no private transport. Everybody's going to, and if there is, you get in your car and it just drives itself because you tell it where you want to go and it drives you there. It's bad enough right now, going 70 miles an hour on the highway, knowing the people that are out there and their capabilities. I don't think they're ever going to let everybody have an affordable aircraft that they can fly around. And the drone thing is a big enough headache. And they're getting bigger and bigger drones now. But when they do finally have flying cars, it's going to be where somebody else is flying it. Somebody's you get into a flight pattern, and the machine takes you where you want to go. That's probably the only way. And I don't know when that'll be, but it won't be soon. Pardon me, I've got allergies, and so rolling through here. There's a fun new. This is Robert Fraser. There's a fun new anthology out there that's a bit of a hot topic, and this is an anthology that was put together by some of the. I know that the media is using this term alt-right, but kind of the right-wing folks. Some of them I know and appreciate and like very much. Nick Cole is in there, and I guess a bunch of them got together and decided to do a anthology called Forbidden Thoughts. And I applaud them. I applaud anybody on any particular freedom of speech topic that wants to do something that's edgy. I'm looking here on the page: Larry Correa, Brad Torgerson, John C. Wright, Vox Day, Sarah Hoyt, and so I know that there are people that are friends of mine that follow my stuff that are I would call them alt left. Who probably think this is an abomination and shouldn't be allowed or whatever. I'm for freedom of speech. I hope they make a ton of money off of it. It looks like it's doing real well. Ranked number 478. Paid in the Kindle store. I'm not offended by opinions with which I disagree, even if they are extreme. And the thing is that we're supposed to have a society where there's laws that stop people from doing certain things, and so. We've kind of developed this idea that we were all taught sticks and stones may break my bones but words will never hurt me. But now there's a whole generation that have been taught that words do hurt people, and because of that everybody's really, really sensitive, and there's some ideas that shouldn't be allowed, and I just don't agree with that, even if I disagree with the ideas vehemently and find them, and we talked about this on a podcast I did with Forbes West and Todd Barcelow and Artie Cabrera, where I said it's like people think that they should be able to silence opinions with which they disagree, and it's possible for me to think that something like heavy metal music or something is dangerous, and I don't want my children to listen to it, and at the same time not feel like it's my job to go out there and not only stop this from happening, but put artists and people out of business. And so I'm very supportive of freedom of speech. Again, even and I might even buy this book. I don't know. I don't have a lot of money, and $4.99 is kind of high for me for an anthology, since I tend to not really like anthologies that much. I've been in quite a few, and some of them were awesome. Tales of Tinfoil was incredible. All the stories in there were great, and there were a couple of stories in there that were worth the whole price of the whole thing. But So I might end up getting this, and if I do, I'll get on here and I'll report, what I think about it. But so that was a question to talk about that. Pardon me, I got to take a drink of my coffee. Richard Fox said Canadian memoirist as experts on all things publishing. He's referring to the Lori something Goff lady who wrote a Canadian who apparently has never sold any books, who wrote a very stupid article about how self-publishing is for idiots, and it's an insult to the written word, and she's backed off of that. She's apologized several times now. Her apologies are, first of all, not necessary. Again, I don't think that people need to be going out there and apologizing for hurting people's feelings if they're saying what they really think, and it's just their opinion. The law should stop somebody from doing something violent or something that's harmful, but we should not have a system where everybody gets upset because someone has an opinion and then that person has to go and apologize. So what she said was stupid, and it was properly handled as far as I'm concerned. And she's on there in her apologies complaining about people sending her hate mail, and she got a death threat or something. I don't even know if I believe that, and even if I do, so what? It's the internet. There's idiots out there, and they'll do stuff. So anyways, she came out with a new apology where she super apologized and admitted she'd only, I guess, read two self-published books. She really, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't know anything about publishing, even publishing, traditionally publishing. She's got a book published that nobody's read. I think since 1998, she's got less than 50 maybe reviews. And some idiot that was on there that was supporting her on Twitter, Michelle Heater or something. She was, I support, you shouldn't apologize. I support what you said 100%. So I went and looked her up. She's got one book and it has 0 reviews and is ranked in the 2 million. So, this is what you're dealing with. You're dealing with people that don't know anything about publishing. Even if they've had a book traditionally published, they've never sold any books. And their validation comes from that system, even if nobody cares. They're basically a voice screaming in a vacuum tube, So, okay, discuss how and when you find the time to write so prodigiously. Oh, and how to care for facial hair. That's Sarah Thompson. I don't really write that prodigiously. I used to, and I'm going to again, Lord willing, in 2017. But I just try to write every day, and that's pretty much it. If you can put out a lot of words every day. I think in my career I've published over 1.5 million words. No, not published, written, probably 2 million. I've got 4 or 5 books that I've written that have not been published. 7, 8, or 9 or some number of books that have been published, plus short stories and novellas, and some very, very long books. But it's just keep doing it. Just keep writing. I don't usually write more than 2,500 to 5,000 words a day. Sometimes it's less. All right, my buddy Steve Statham down in Austin, Texas, says status of the Longhorn herd. They are peachy keen, doing great. Went out and fed them some cubes the day before yesterday, and they're doing great. I'll do some updates on that a little later, but all the calf herd is looking good, and none of them look to have been shot by hunters, and so it's looking pretty good. The challenges of taking a novella, futurity, and expanding it into a novel. Well, that's a good one. It's very difficult because what I decided to do with futurity was I'm not just expanding the storyline, but I'm actually adding another layer. So basically it's 2 stories laid on top of each other. And so in the first novella, the main character was a gamer, but that was just just something that you knew about the character. There was no actual gaming in the book. And so the first novella was like 44,000 words, which is pretty close to novel length. But what I did is I decided to take the gamer element and to make that a full part of the story. So we actually get to see the gaming elements, the sci-fi elements of the gaming, virtual reality, and then a alternate reality that's laid on top of the overall story of time travel. And when I first submitted, I think the first 9 chapters to my agent, he thought it was really, really good. And then he said, I'd like to see how these 2 stories are going to come together. And so just recently I sent him up through chapter 15, I think, or 14 or 15, and he's loving it. So I think it's going to work out well. I love the story, and I'm having fun writing it. All right, and another thing Steve asked was a reaction to Hell in the Sea. So far, the reaction has been really, really good. A lot of people, there was some stirs at the very beginning. Some people didn't know what it was going to be. They thought it was just airing dirty laundry. But, and what he's talking about here, my book, Hell in the Sea, that I'm releasing chapter by chapter, a chapter a month on patreon.com. You can go to my website, michaelbunker.com, click on the Patreon symbol there and go read about it. But the book Hell in the Sea is a roman à clef, which is basically a true story that's been fictionalized, names changed, and some composite characters, that type of thing, in order to there's a lot of different reasons why you write a roman à clef, and there's some very famous literary works that are in this genre, such as Sun Also Rises and a lot of others. Even, pardon me, a lot of the story of Great Gatsby, and there's a bunch of them. So what I'm basically talking about is the indie pub revolution starting in about 2011, giving a little history of that, and then some of my experiences through the main character, and it's been a fun ride. And now that I think I just put out chapter 9. I think people are really enjoying it. The people that are reading it are really enjoying it. And so I'm anxious to get it done and get it actually published and see what kind of impact there is. I sent the whole novel up through chapter 9 to my agent a couple weeks ago, and I'm waiting to hear what he thinks about it. But so far, I think the reaction's been really, really good. Steve asked, which beer pairs with the Time Looter series? Oh, you got to have a good... I was in Fredericksburg this past week with my good friend Chris Awalt, co-writer of Wick, and we went to German restaurants. We went over to Auslander, and we were drinking pitchers of Warsteiner because Chris kind of likes lighter, full flavored but lighter beers, and so normally this time of year I'd be drinking darker Guinness, Oktoberfest, that type of thing. But that Warsteiner was really good. And that's probably what you need with the Time Looter series. I'm going to say Warsteiner. And then he asked, what's a podcast? I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm going to see. So I funneled through a couple of other joke questions. And most of the time the show's not going to be like this. I'm not just going to be going through questions. I really just want to pick a few, maybe 4 or 5 topics and really explore those topics from my point of view. But since this is the first one, and I asked people, Holly says, I would like to hear what animals you have. I always forget 1 or 2, but we have longhorn cattle, we have sheep, Dorpers, and another one, can't remember, mainly Dorpers. We have chickens, of course, rabbits, pigs, horses. There's probably more. I'm probably forgetting something. Of course, cats and dogs. As far as care and work that we do maintain them, we do kind of the normal things. All of our cattle are free ranged on 460 acres that's adjacent to our property, and then our sheep kind of like manage themselves. They get in and out through the fence, and they go out there in that 460 acres too, and then they come in for feed sometimes. We have a big chicken area, and then my wife free ranges the chickens sometimes at night. Pigs, we're going to be improving our pig operation, but right now we mainly are dealing with pigs that are somewhat fertilized. We have a pig pen area, but the wild pigs keep getting in there and impregnating the females, so we get kind of getting a wilder and wilder fertilized pig. But we keep getting pigs, so it's working out for us right now. Holly said, "Why Englishers would not survive 1 week on a plain farm, despite admiration and best attentions." Well, they may survive. I don't know. We try not to let them die. The main reason that people that are not familiar with this type of life would have a difficulty is because that they're in their minds coming in, they think that there are some slight differences. In other words, they think we have kind of like this alternate grid and that everything's basically the same. It's just a little bit different. And in reality, everything is just fundamentally different. From the ground up, it's different. And so there's expectations, and it's probably a little rougher than people think that it is. I'm down here. I'm on the computer. I'm on Facebook, and I'm doing a podcast in my little office using solar power. I'm being heated right now by wood in the wood stove and a little kerosene heater. But they don't see what it took to, like this morning I woke up, it was 21 degrees outside. I walked down to the office, had to carry some firewood with me because I don't have any firewood at the office right now. And so you come into the office, it's below freezing in the office, things froze overnight. Got to get a fire started, which means I got to go back outside. We use broomweed, a lot of broomweed to start fires and sticks. And, you get the fire started and then I get the kerosene started. I got to fill the kerosene heater, get that started. And then it takes a little while for it to even get above freezing where I could begin to do some work. But so our days are different. The things that even going to the bathroom, it's not like you're just walking into a heated or air conditioned room and doing your business and flushing it and walking away. We up top we have an outhouse, which is curious when it's this cold, and then down here I have a humanure toilet, which is basically a bucket that's underneath a handicapped toilet ring, and so there's things you have to do. It's just a different life, and I really enjoy it, but it's a different life. All right, drink of the coffee. I started off, I was a little irritated. I'm starting to calm down a little bit. The technology is really, really irritating me because even after I finish this, I got to figure out how to get it loaded, see how it's going to work. One thing I like about this format, though, is that I can sit down here and do this anytime. I don't have to plan it ahead. I don't have to, and if something's happening in the world that I want to talk about, I can just talk about that. I didn't want to do an author podcast. There's a lot of those. Those are great. I love the people that are doing those, but we just, as far as I'm concerned, we don't need any more author podcast. And so, and I don't like to have guests because I have enough things that I want to say, and I end up sitting there listening to somebody who may or may not know that much about what they're talking about, and so I just figure it's best that I just talk about what I want to talk about, and I have a lot of topics I want to talk about. All right, Mike Duran says, "Why has dystopian fiction maintained its popularity? What about its themes seem to resonate with readers?" Well, I think that's exactly it. Dystopianism is a tacit recognition that we live in a world that is both unsustainable and in a perilous condition. And there's a recognition in people, whether they acknowledge it or not. There's a subconscious recognition that things are going to get bad at some point. And I just had some leftover pizza, which may sound weird, but my wife was out of town. And so the neighbor brought over some pizza, and so that's why I'm a little burpy. Anyway, so I think there's this kind of latent knowledge in people that things are not sustainable, that we live in a very divided society that's becoming hostile and violent. We have become more and more dependent on very questionable means of provision, just-in-time delivery of goods and services that is completely unsustainable and easily interfered with. That we have technology as the base foundation of everything, and that technology, as we found out recently, is highly permeable. And I think people know that. And so, dystopianism not only gives them an idea of an option of what the world could look like if something happens, some event, but it's also a way to kind of avoid responsibility in a way of having to make actual changes in your life, because you can read somebody else doing it, somebody else having to deal with that situation, which could be very likely in our own lives. And I think that resonates with people. I think that there's never going to be a time when that probably goes away. And in times of where there's difficulty on things, where the world is scary, there's more likely to be people that are flooding into that genre to read about it. All right, please discuss your favorite Russian literature. Oh, I love all of it. My favorite, I love Tolstoy, but he's probably not my favorite. I love Solzhenitsyn, both the nonfiction and the fiction. Gogol, I love Gogol. I love Turgenev. Turgenev's probably my favorite. Just pick up and read Russian literature. Both his short stories, which are awesome, and there's something about Russian literature that I mentioned in Hell in the Sea, and that is that American literature has become so fantastic, and by that I mean unbelievable. It's departed from reality. It's not magical realism. It's just magical. It's just become completely fantasy, in my opinion, especially sci-fi and fantasy. And I think that there's going to be a big what do you call it? Blowback or rejection of that coming. If you're watching movies, and I talk about this in Hell in the Sea, that it started off like the first action films. Your superhero landed on the street and he cracked the sidewalk, and now he lands and he folds up like a mile of pavement. And you started off by throwing a guy into a building or throwing a car into a building, and now it's like entire cities just completely blown away into dust. And it's gotten so fantastic. There's no grip on reality. There's no explanation of anything about why anybody can do anything. And the super nerds, they know the mythology, but it's just not worth it for other people that haven't always been super nerds to go in and find out why Thor can pick up a hammer and nobody else can. It's very loosely, tangentially, maybe attached to early fantasies and King Arthur type of stuff, but it's gotten so fantastic that it's completely unbelievable. And there's a group of people who have the ability to follow that. They enjoy it, but I think there's even a limit for them. There's going to be a limit to this unrealism and how far it can go. So Russian literature to me is about real life. It's not about ghosts and goblins and all of those things. There's not magic in most of it. It's just people and real life. In War and Peace, you got people going to dinner parties and hanging out, going through their aristocratic lives. But throughout the whole book, there's this menace of Napoleon coming, and the war's coming, and it's going to affect everybody's life, and it's going to change everything. And that's the kind of life we live. We live in that life. And so some people go, well, I want to escape that. I want to go read something else, and that's fine. But if that what you escape to doesn't have a thread of truth, there's nothing true. If there's nothing true in it, then it doesn't. In my mind, it cannot satisfy for very long. And that's my opinion. So that's why Russian lit's my favorite genre. Update on Cold Harbor. It's still on the schedule. You know, I sit down every day and I decide what I need to write based on a lot of things, including what I want to do and what's going to make money to provide for my family. And then I set up an order, and so it's on the schedule for 2017. I hope I get to it. We'll see. All right, so let me look over here and see what kind of thing I got going on. You know, as these things develop, like I said, I'll probably have less questions and more overall topics, things that are happening here on the farm, things that are happening in my life. I'm going to be heading down to Austin, scheduled to come down there the 21st and be down there through the 22nd. I think on the 22nd we're having a book signing at Malvern Books in Austin in the afternoon, and then after that we're doing a sci-fi panel at Half Price Books. So I'll be giving you more information on that here in a little while. I'm going to be sending out a email to my newsletter subscriber lists that's going to give everybody a bunch of free books. So you do want to be on my newsletter subscriber list. Just go to michaelbunker.com. A pop-up will make it easy for you to sign up for my newsletter. And if you have questions or comments, or you want me to talk about something on the show, you can always find me on Facebook and just private message me, or you can email me at bunker2k@hotmail.com, or find some other means of, you can comment on this YouTube, I suppose, although I do put where I have to approve comments. And so if you want to ask a question, you could always put it in the comments, and then I'll go through and approve it, and then I'll see it. So, this one's going to be a little bit shorter than some of the shows probably will be, but I just wanted to get the first one out there, see what it's like, see what people think about it. If you got any ideas, go to michaelbunker.com if you want more information about me. And then also one thing you want to do is you want to subscribe to this YouTube channel. That way you can you get alerts when new podcasts go up. All right, that's it for the first Michael Bunker radio podcast thingy, and I'll talk to you all soon.